budget. The budget's been published and available for consumption. This year's budget, I'm doing the budget first, then CIP in that order. This year's budget basically includes a tax levy increase with staying under the tax cap. While the tax levy's gone up, there you'll see in a couple slides, there is savings, a small, very fractional savings to the average household, to town residents. The reason why we were able to accomplish that is because we've had good growth again this year in property value that is related to a lot of the economic development projects and redevelopment that we've had going on here. A look at the expenditures by fund include a $95 million general fund. You can see it's our largest fund. The smallest fund is our central alarm fund. We provide central alarm services not only for Amherst, but for Clarence, Newstead, and Akron as well. The rate change, or what average household will see, is a meager 32-cent savings, or a 0.02% decrease. So it's essentially a flat median home, and that change is related to what we've been able to accomplish in terms of growing our services and seeing town develop and continue to redevelop. The overall, this is a look at the allocated budgets. So you see townwide, village share, and town share. So there is a portion of the town which pays a different, we don't have the B fund. There's a couple other things that the village share isn't included. There is just kind of a look at the change in assessed value. Again, so it's about an $83 million change in assessed value, or growth this year. That's indicative, as Moody's told us, of a town that continues to excel in terms of redevelopment strategy. This is the sort of a estimated fund balance percentage of the 2026 budget. We continue to maintain a 10.7% fund balance. We're staying over our self-created 10% fund balance minimum, or fund balance threshold. The growth, so just to kind of break down our budget, personnel services, which is our employee salaries, sees a $3 billion increase, or a 4.9% change. That is about 36.49% of our overall budget. Benefits, which includes retirement and healthcare, that saw a $5 million increase. Healthcare continues to perplex a lot of communities, but that accounted for a 13.75% increase, and it makes up 25% of our budget. So, roughly 60% of our budget is situated between personnel services and benefits. So it's tied up in staff and people, and an investment in people, and an investment in people that provide services. Our fixed assets is 1.25%. Our contractuals down 8.6%, makes up about 17.42%, and our debt is up 0.29%, and it's about a 13% of our annual budget. The reason why that's such a low increase is because, or percent change, is frankly we retire debt while we're adding debt, right? It's not just adding debt, we are constantly retiring debt as well. You can see, so At the end of the day, we're looking at a 2.48% change in terms of expense. That's offset by some revenue growth, and the revenue growth really comes from some increased revenue that we're seeing. The building department continues to see increase in permit fees associated with a lot of projects and a lot of large projects. We continue to see an increase in our sales tax distribution, but also in this year, our mortgage tax, which has been down, is already bouncing back in 25. We expect some growth there, although we're not, nothing massive. So really, the building department revenue increase is the largest offset. So again, the overall impact of that levy change is negative 0.02% on an average household. Before I get into the CIP and the borrowing, I just want to remind everybody that tonight is the first of 3 public hearings on the budget. It's the 14th here at Town Hall. Then we're at the Senior Center for a public hearing on 10/24 at 10 a.m. So that's a good time if you can't get to the Town Hall at night. And it's another opportunity for people to interact with the town on this. Again, on the 27th here at Town Hall at our next town board meeting. And you can mail to the town of Amherst attention town board here at 5583 Main Street, Williamsville, New York 14221. Or you can email budget comments at amherst.ny.us. Those comments sent there will be added to the public hearing record. And finally, budget comments can also be are also available to you at https://www.amherst.ny.us/budget comments. So we started this last year, and I asked Linda to work with me on preparation of debt overview presentation. I think it was helpful last year. We had our bond counsel from Harris Beach participate in last year's creation. But I'm going to go through how bands and bonds work, because I know that there's been some conversation about those in the past. So I'm going to start with bond anticipation notes, or bands. They are short-term financing, typically for 1 year. A project can be kept in a band or rolled over for a maximum of 5 years, with financing required each year. Typically, we roll those over when we are either not completed with the project or it's more favorable terms to keep them in a band. Once they become eligible for a bond, though, typically our bond financing is much less than bands. So bonds are long-term financing, typically between 10 and 40. A maximum term of the financing is determined by the period of probable usefulness. So it's usually referred to as a life cycle or a project's longevity. Once the project is rolled into a bond, the principal and interest payments are set for the term of the bond. So there's no balloon payments. They don't oscillate up and down. They are set across the entire period of the bond. Bonds can be refinanced under certain circumstances should interest rates decline. Certainly, as we watch interest rates decline, we're always looking to see, and we have financial advisors who look to see when we should be thinking about refinancing some of our old debt. The maximum time period for a municipality can finance an object or a purpose through debt is known as the period of probable usefulness, or PPU, which is determined by New York State financial local finance law. Town establishes its capital program, or CIP, each year in conjunction with the budget process. We've used the CIP successfully since before me, and it's a good process. I think we have a pretty robust CIP program. When a department is ready to move forward with an approved project or a capital project, a map plan and report, or MPR, is submitted to the finance department for review and then to the legal department for processing. The legal department coordinates with bond counsel, in our case Harris Beach PLLC, who provides a bond resolution for placement on the town board agenda. So again, that's handled specifically by bond counsel so our bond attorneys. Once one of several processes may be followed depending on the project. Projects with a PPU of 5 years or less become effective immediately upon approval of the bond resolution by the town board. Projects within a special district require a public hearing and become effective after the public hearing has been closed and upon approval of the bond resolution by the town board. Projects with a PPU of over 5 years not in a special district become effective after a 30-day permissive referendum period, which begins the day of a town board approval of the bond resolution. All bond authorizations must be approved by a supermajority, or 2/3 of the board's voting strength, or 4 board members in the case of Amherst Town Board. The borrowing process. The town typically issues debt annually in a single borrowing in the fall. If there are any larger projects which require early financing, a ban may be issued earlier in the year and then rolled into the regular fall borrowing. The comptroller's office works with the town's municipal advisor, in our case, Capital Markets Advisors LLC, and the town's bond counsel on finalizing the town's official statement, which outlines the borrowing. A credit rating for issuance is obtained from Moody's Investor Services Incorporated. Our bond rating is staying the same as it's been throughout my tenure. The town's 2024 bond rating was AA3. We're expecting it to remain steady at AA3. The borrowing is put out to market by the municipal advisor. The town closes on the borrowing typically in November. Projects with a 5-year PPU are typically kept in short-term financing or bans for the life of the borrowing. Projects with longer PPUs are initially issued for short-term debt bans and then rolled into longer-term debt or bonds, typically held in bands for 2 years and then rolled into bonds. They may be held in bands for shorter or longer periods of time depending on what is projected for interest rates. Infrastructure projects such as road, water, sewer may be bonded in 1 year. The town has the power to contract indebtedness for any town purpose. The principal amount of the town debt cannot exceed 7% of the most recent 5-year average full valuation of taxable real estate in the town. This is subject to certain exclusions and deductions such as water and certain sewer facilities. The town's constitutional debt limit as of 12/31/24 was 17.18%. A total debt less exclusions of $176,960,454, with a debt limitation of $1,029,944,167. The estimated constitutional debt limit at 12/31/25 is 16.62%. A total debt less exclusions of $186,132,235, with a debt limitation of $1,119,907,220. The CIP program for the years 26 to 31 has been presented by myself to the board. The CIP identifies and prioritizes and made public. It prioritizes large capital projects, their cost and funding sources. It follows the town's debt management policies, implements the comprehensive plan and public facilities plans, generally involves physical improvements with project costs in excess of $100,000, generally. It involves new facilities or major repairs. It's not intended to fund routine maintenance. The town board is sole authority for adoption and amendments. We do have a CIP review committee. It's the supervisors, committee chair, planning board chair, comptroller, director of finance, town attorney, town engineer or engineering department designee, planning director, director of economic development, and the planning department staff to assist in project and organization. CIP review committee discusses in progress in the status of previously approved 2025 CIP projects. In some cases, the project gets funded and not started. some cases it gets pulled. Departments submit a new project request for a program period 2026 to 2031. Committee reviews and evaluates new project requests over several meetings and formulates a recommended CIP. The supervisor then submits the recommended CIP to the town board with the budget. The town board reviews the recommended CIP during the public hearing. The town board adopts the CIP with the town's operating budget. 6-year program for the 2026-2031 includes 63 projects with a total bonding value of approximately $87 million. The amounts proposed to be funded in 2026 include $22,747,000 in long-term bonding, zero in current funding, $13,760,000 from other sources, mostly federal and state funds and grants, but in some cases, private sector contributions in the form of community benefit agreements on projects. That project, those bonds and funding sources at that level enable us to perform $36,500,000 worth of work. We're very grateful to all the federal and state representatives, as well as to the IDA and the private sector investors who create such a large offset. Of our bonded projects, the majority of them are in the water pollution control facility, $6,150,000. That facility, it's going to come up in a few minutes, carries the largest project that we have scheduled for this year. Paving, transportation, and vehicles in the amount of $4 million. Recreation and parks, a little over $4 million. Water lines at $2.8 million. Sanitary sewer system at $1.6. Storm drainage at $1.6, and other things, some facilities, some studies, etc. at $2.4. You get a look at where those components have been in the past. You can see that there's been a run-up in the WPCF to a very large project in 2025 and then in 26. We did hold a public hearing on that project in 25. I'm going to ask Jeff Burrows in a minute to come up as our town engineer just to re-explain that project, as it is the majority of the borrowing for this planned borrowing for this year. The sanitary sewers, you can see kind of where we are: storm drainage, paving, transportation, and water systems. So with that, Jeff, if you would come up. Our largest project for the year was subject to a public hearing held a year ago. It's the second part of two for the WPCF oxygen separation system replacement. I was looking at the presentation and asked Jeff if he would speak more eloquently on the topic than I could. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jeff.
Good evening, Supervisor and members of the board. Just a quick mini wastewater lesson. The town's treatment plant employs an aerobic process to break down the pollutants in the sewage. The air for the aerobic system, the oxygen, is provided by a cryogenic plant. That plant currently produces oxygen at a 95% purity, rather than using atmospheric oxygen, which is only 22%. By volume. So the cryo plant is original to the treatment plant, which means it was put online somewhere in the late 70s, early 80s. And although the plant has had minor improvements, it has obsolete components and is costing more than it should in electricity and maintenance costs. And unfortunately, every month or so, there's another emergency that we have to jump to keep the thing running. So the replacement system, which we're considering, is a VPSA. It still generates pure oxygen. It just does it differently. It uses a sieve separation rather than the boiling point of the gases in air to separate, is in the cryo plant. The improvement is in two processes. The first is that we have a consultant who has put together procurement documents to actually bid and buy the equipment because the equipment has a lead time of somewhere between 12 and 13 months. Those documents are in the DEC's hand for approval, and the Environmental Facilities Corporation, which we are hoping we are going to get a grant from them for this project, so they have a seat at the table as well. And then the second component of it is actually for the design for the site improvements that have to occur to house these new units at the facility, and the piping and the controls and the electrical hookups and all that. That design effort is just kicking off here, but it's pretty well defined. So at this point, the town has applied for an Environmental Facilities Corporation WIIA grant that was applied for on September 12th was the application deadline. We anticipate that to be somewhere around $3 million of a $10 to $12 million project. And the reason that we're hedging on the numbers is because that we anticipate that we're going to be able to value engineer some of the components out of the project with a different manufacturer of the equipment. So subject to that, I will take questions and okay, sorry. Sure, thank you.
All right, so that is the largest project that we have scheduled in terms of capital expenses here. Again, what's scheduled last year for 26, right? CIP 45. Other projects note include the North Forest Pool and Park renovations it's a little bit of a kind of guarded secret sometimes, when people think of campers that think of Clearfield Pool. We actually have two. The second of which is at North Forest. If you haven't been there, it's a wonderful park. The pool hasn't been touched in a little time. The building and pool needs some upgrade. We have a grant thanks to Senator Sean Ryan for installing a splash pad, and we have another grant thanks to the generosity of the Jolly Boys for playground at that location. So the park's going to get overhauled. With that, we intend to modify the building and potentially increase attendance, and also start some renovation process there. And then the second one, we've gone for a year, missed a year on playground procurement. The part because the rules surrounding sole source contracts and the state kind of stopped utilizing state contracts. So sole source contracts for playgrounds has been oh, sorry, my microphone's off. I apologize. So again, just for the record, North Forest Park pool renovations. And the second thing, we did miss 1 year of playground investment in part because of the sole source contracts and the way that we can purchase those materials and installation has changed. We do have a number of playgrounds to get after this year. We did receive a grant for Clearfield to replace that playground thanks to Assemblywoman McMahon. We do have plans at places like Briarhurst, Creekwood, and places like and the Northwest Community Center. So we are returning to investing in those after a year hiatus. And I think that completes my budget and CIP overview for the public